We watched the Craic Irish Bodybuilding podcast. So the day's going to be a little bit of a different one here today because for a start, it's just me. Ideally, I'd have a couple more people on this, but what we're going to do as well is review the Irish shows. That's the plan going forward. And obviously, last week there was PCA Ireland first timers up in Derry there. Now, the show itself was a good show. It's the second year it's ran there. Obviously, the open show's here in a couple of weeks. So a lot of the athletes, I'm sure, that have done the first timers show will then go into the open show. And we also have NABA this weekend over here. So it kind of comes at a good time. The one thing that I will say about PCA Ireland, and again, this is all just my own opinion, is that they need to do a better job at promoting the athletes. Obviously in the mainland UK, they have reels there. They have a lot more sort of photography of the athletes that then sort of drives traction. And really, we don't really have any of that here. So it makes it more difficult, definitely, to do a show review. But like my goal here is to try and promote the Irish bodybuilding scene. I want to promote some of the athletes, some of the coaches, and also the show itself, because actually, aside from that, it was a really well ran, put together show. Again, over in the mainland UK, they have the reels. This is a separate entity, but that is definitely something we could do more. I had a videographer up there in the day, and I offered my videographer over to PCA Ireland, so he's done some footage and some reels, but again, not the same level in which they have in terms of marketing over there. But the show itself, the second year, it's a similar number, I would say, to last year. I was at the show last year. I would say around 60 athletes on stage, give or take. Some classes were large, some classes were a little bit smaller, just like any other show, but they were fairly competitive. And also the standard of athlete here is also very, very good. I would say from what I see in my experience from, being over in England as well, that the standard of athlete here is at least as good, if not better, than a lot of the shows you'll get over there. Because essentially over in England, there's that many shows, and the level of athlete I would say gets diluted to some degree. The top guys are still the top guys. But over here, it's much smaller, and a lot of the guys will go, guys and girls obviously will go and compete in those Irish shows, which is what we want to do. So the more we can highlight that, the more we can showcase that, in my opinion, the better. Now, aside from just the marketing and the IG reads, I thought the show was ran very well. Like it comes at a good time. It was a little bit different in terms of they treat the coaches very well, they treat the athletes very well. We all got a coaching pass. They put us up right at the front row as well, which is, it's helpful to see your athletes and be able to see really, like the levels of details as well. And being backstage, that's a bonus. Again, over in the UK, you can't do that. So they treat it as very, very well. They treat the athletes very well. Maybe a couple of pump up bands backstage and a couple of dumbbells would be handy. But again, you don't really get that over there either. So, I'm not going to complain too much about that. And the Millennium Forum itself as a venue, I think it is excellent. It creates a very good atmosphere, albeit it wasn't fully sold out. There was still, a lot of people there, supporting as well. So, I think that's it. That's a positive. The venue, how they treat it, I know the guys are trying, and I'm sure over the next sort of couple of years, will grow. And I think by adding a little bit more of the IG reads, really, that will make a big, big difference because that's what people want to see. That's what they're there for. So yeah, today I'm going to do a sort of, I would say, a quick review of the show and some of the athletes that which I thought really sort of stood out generally. So if we look at this is the overall lineup. Again, as I say, some of the classes were big, some of the classes were a little bit smaller. What I found is the bodybuilding classes were a little bit smaller in terms of numbers, bar the junior class, which I had three clients in. It was large. Uh, Men's physique, reasonably well supported. Bikini divisions were, I thought, very high standard and very well supported. The classic division, it was nearly larger than the bodybuilding, which is, it's nearly looking like the way that's been going as of late. It's just, it's the trends, it's the way it is. But the overall lineup I thought was fairly good. It was a good in terms of the bikini girl. It was Amy. I thought she was excellent, coached by Brian Ward. I'd seen her a few months back at the PCA posing seminar again, which they put on a couple of times a year for free. And I'd strongly urge any sort of first timers, especially, to get yourself to that because it really it's free. It's very, very useful, especially the first timer, because obviously stage presence, which is something we'll talk about as well, it makes a massive difference. But yeah, I seen Amy there, and I thought she was a standout, and she won her master's class. And I thought, I thought she stood out in the overall as well. From level of condition was phenomenal. She had good muscularity. She's a very good bikini shape. Her presentation was good. So overall, I thought, really did think she was excellent. Then we got the figure winner as well. That was Shirley. Unfortunately, I can't click on Shirley's thing because I don't follow her, which doesn't follow me, so I can't actually see her pictures to actually sort of break them down. But again, I thought she was excellent. Good level of condition as well. Good muscularity. She was figure through and through. Men's physique guy, big, tall baller. I don't think that's his real name, But yeah, he was good. It had good fullness. He had a very good midsection. He was men's physique through and through. That's what it's about. He had good presentation. His presence on stage was very good. He had a big smile and like, as cheesy as that sounds, it makes a difference. It draws the eyes of the judges. And I thought he was very good. And then the bodybuilding winner, so he actually came from classic short. I was obviously looking at some of the competitors coming into the show because my guys were in it, and I didn't actually see him. I didn't know he was going to be there, so I didn't have him for the overall. But then when I seen him backstage again, I knew it'd be a tight one alongside a couple of the other guys there. Leaf. So what I'll do is I'll click on a few of them and we'll have a look and see in terms of some of their Instagram stuff that they have up there. So yeah, Ali won the classic short. I think there was a couple other guys in that as well. His posing was very good. He'd done the splits, which is which is commendable. And I thought it's like that it stood out as very classical posing. His overall like muscularity was solid. I thought in the overall he probably looked like probably the most muscled there. Midsection was very very good. A little bit maybe I felt in my opinion it went a little bit sort of blown out by the time the overalls had came, which I thought left the door open for a couple of people. But overall, I thought it was excellent, and I thought the overall itself was very close. I think I have a couple of videos of the overall that I've taken that I'll be able to show. Amy, I was very impressed with. I thought again, as I was talking about earlier, her conditioning stood out to me as bikini through and through. So to me, she was quite handily the best bikini girl there. And that's what we've got for that. And that's what I mean about actually trying to do a show review with it. There's just not that many videos. Some of the coaches that had a lot of clients in, I'll click on. So just to give a shout out to them, Adam Ultimate Physiques, credit to him. I think he had 9 competing in Derry that day, and he had a couple competing in Europe as well. I think maybe he said he had one in Australia, but this is a lineup of 9 girls, and he brought them all in very well. I don't know how many awards he got, but he definitely got quite a few. And like the bikini girls, like that was one of the classes that actually stood out to me. Bikini used to be a little bit softer, maybe not as muscle, but some of these girls, especially the way they presented themselves, I know Emma Quinn takes a lot of the bikini girls for posing, and it makes such a difference on stage. Like just to click through, you see the standard of it here. Again, bikini tall, she looked excellent as well. She sort of stood out in terms of her presentation. And then there was a couple in Europe there, but he had loads in it, did Adam. And again, it's a great job done by him. To be able to do that many in one day and do some in Europe as well, like that, that takes a lot of skill and artistry, so it does. So yeah, bikini class was good. But I thought the condition of the bikini girls was like, to me, it sort of really drew the eye, and it's definitely leveled up over the past few years. You can't get away with going into bikini now, particularly soft. I think within PCA especially, they do tend to award a little bit like harder conditioning there, which I see as a positive. I think to me, it's a bodybuilding show. I don't want to see my athletes soft. I want to see them like shred it. Brian Ward, he had a couple of guys in it as well. So he had the overall bikini girl, Amy, winning. And he also had, I believe, Daniel. Now, Daniel, I think, won medium class. This guy was shredded. He was peeled. I'd watched him in the sort of coming up in the actual over the past few weeks, and his conditioning was good. He's maybe not the biggest guy there, and I'm sure that's something that he'll go and work on in the off season, especially with Brian. He'll get there with that. It's just a time in the oven thing, but his level of conditioning was class. I would say he was probably the leanest guy potentially in the overall in terms of like front to back, side to side. There's a couple of guys, obviously, like there's certain body parts stand out in some people, but his level of condition was excellent. And as I say, so was Amy. Wardy's, loves he's coming in peeled. That's what he says, coming in skinned. And he tends to do that, and he tends to deliver every single time. He's definitely one of the sort of obviously the top coaches over here. So yeah, that was Amy. Again, very, very good in terms of condition. You can see that. Another guy that stood out to me, he didn't win the overall. I thought personally this would be one of the guys that we'd be battling for the overall because I didn't know the young Brazilian fella, Alif, I think his name is. I've definitely got that wrong. But yeah, Matt McCulloch's client, he had, again, a couple of people in the show as well. Maybe not load this one. Lorcan, yeah. So he had actually 2 in Classic going against each other. A guy, Daniel and Lorcan. There's only 2 in that class. But again, like I thought the standard of this was really, really good. This was Lorcan who I'm talking about. He went into the overall after winning I believe Classic Tall, I believe, anyways. From the rear, especially, his glutes were absolutely inside out. I kind of used to pride myself on having sharp glutes, but this he was absolutely nailed. He really, really was. I'll just click on his own profile here. Yeah, so he was classic, and he's one of the ones that definitely caught my eye coming up. It's a really, really good future in the sport as well. He had good legs. He maybe lacked a little bit in terms of just overall density through the shoulders, through the chest, but don't we all? If we look at it here, yeah, he looked excellent. Presented himself well. Looked very much like a classic guy. The mustache is an absolute must if we're going to be winning the classic. And his presentation, posing, I thought was good. You can see there, like glutes were razor, razor sharp. Very, very good level of condition, very good level of detail. And that's what I found again across the board against the top guys. Like the condition on the day, it was excellent. I will go on to my page here actually, because I've got a couple of videos of some of the classes in the overall as well. So I had three in junior bodybuilding, two twins. One of the twins we kind of slightly missed the mark with, but we go again in Newcastle in a couple of weeks and we'll make up for that. But Ellis, to me, was one of the standout guys. Ellis won the junior bodybuilding class again. To me, that was probably one of the best classes of the day. There was eight in that. I had a first with Ellis. Second, I believe, was a young lad, Emmett, who Ben Gardner took. Actually, coming up, I thought, I didn't, I'll be honest, I didn't think a huge amount of me. Lacked a little bit of size. On the day, looked phenomenal. Really full, really conditioned, presented really well, great midsection, and thoroughly deserved second place. Then I had Phoenix, who had placed third in the class as well. A condition was very, very good. The young lad in fourth was excellent. So, I thought, and then Jensen came fifth. So, the actual top five, I thought was of a very good standard for a junior. So this was Ellis here. Phoenix, that's the wrong one. That's why I'm doing that. Yeah, so this is Ellis here. You can see there, that's the top three. This is young lad Emmett. I thought he looked excellent. He's pulling a vacuum there, but his midsection was fantastic. Ellis just had a little bit more muscularity, a little bit more condition through the torso. Through the legs. He was, his legs are stand out, and Phoenix is lovely straight shape and structure. And then this is actually a video of the overall. It's a little bit dark, but you can see there Lorcan on the side, the winner Alif here. You had Wardy's client Daniel, I believe, and then Ellis here. So to me, this was pretty close. If I'm being honest, I thought we had it. I thought Alif there was he was a little bit more mature in terms of his muscle mass. I like Ellis's shape more. Again, though, his posing it left a little bit to be desired, and that's where the posing comes in so much when it's when you're competing for the first time. You can see here he pulls a really nice vacuum, a little bit more sweeping the legs. I thought it could have went both ways, but I certainly could see, why Alif won it. I thought his midsection was good. As I say, by the time he came round to doing the overalls, stomach just a little bit more full, but I think with these sort of things, it can go both ways. I thought Lorcan to me was incredibly impressive. I thought he had a good shout in it too. Again, just his general level of condition, top to bottom, back to front, I thought was excellent. And Daniel here again, peeled, but maybe just doesn't have the same, I suppose, same structure and muscle mass. That's something Ellis did have was excellent muscle mass. And generally, I thought he may have just pipped it. But yeah, not to be for another day. For another day. I'll go on. I want to just go back on to the overalls and just click on the men's physique winner because I can go on that one. Yeah, as I say, this guy, I'm going to pretend to know his name. Big Tubbs, baller. Thought he looked really good. As I say, again, there was other guys come in very, very hard. Like that's the thing with the men's physique classes as well. Like the midsections on them, the level of condition was ridiculous. And actually, I would say that he possibly wasn't the most conditioned guy there, but he just had, to me, the best men's physique flow, best men's physique structure. But anyway, I thought this one was a slightly closer call than definitely the bikini and stuff as well. In terms of his fullness through, I'd love to see some more comparisons. And again, this is what I say about, obviously with the PCA Ireland, if there was a few more comparison shots, it's only going to draw the eye, it's only going to draw attention because there's plenty, obviously there's podcasts within the UK that like to break down shows beyond the stage. I actually messaged them and said about, are you going to be covering the PCA Ireland show? But they said, well, there's nothing to cover because we don't have anything, which is a fair point. What can you do? So I think just a little bit more exposure on that side, would really be ideal. It really, really would be. I'll just show you one other guy here. So yeah, back to the overall lineup. Again, as I say, I thought the level of competitor was very good. I thought the numbers could have been a little bit higher there. And I think that would come from a little bit more promotion. Definitely the Instagram reads need to go up. Again, I'm hoping with time that'll be the case. But generally, I thought But, everybody showed up very, very well. There was enough people in it to make it a competitive show. There wasn't too many classes with just one person. I think there was only one class maybe that had just one person in it, which nobody wants to see. Like generally, at least if you're getting two or three clients or athletes in a class, you're gonna have something that you can at least compare to, which is exactly what you want. Uh, I can't remember the actual bodybuilding winners, and that's another annoyance as well with not having these sort of things. But generally, as I say, the show itself was good. Going forward, that's what they need. They need a little bit more marketing, a little more Instagram side of things as well to really push that side of things. But the open show tends to be that little bit bigger. So it's in, I believe, 3 weeks' time, and there's a couple of big guys going in for that. And my plan is to get, a couple of other coaches on to actually review that show, talk through that show, and hopefully we can get a few more reels to talk about. I know there is the medium class lineup, the bodybuilding lineup in general is going to be a very, very high standard. And for me, it'll be interesting to watch because obviously I plan to go into the open classes come September, which is going to be a Shark Tank. But I'm there for it. But it'll be interesting to see. So make sure if you can go and support the shows. That's a massive thing. If we're not supporting the shows, we'll never get the range. If you're not competing in them, you're going over across England to compete. We're not going to get that. We want to make Irish bodybuilding, Northern Irish, Southern Irish bodybuilding, wherever you are, like top notch. And by going and competing and supporting the shows, you get NABA this Saturday up in Newton Ards. Get to that, you get the PCA Open in Derry on, I believe, it's 2 weeks after. So go and get to it, show your support to all the athletes as well, and then show your support in this podcast as well, because it makes a big, big difference. That's about as good a job as I can do by myself and with just the limited reels that I have to go off. But yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know who you want on to review these shows as well, because that's something I really want to do going forward.